May the gods keep the wolves in the hills and the women in our beds.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Blood you seek, you're welcome to join us.
The Thessalonian you're fighting. He's the biggest man I've ever seen. I wouldn't want to fight him.
That's why no one will remember your name.
When all else fails, fresh tactics.
You don't set out to build a wall. You don't say, I'm going to build the biggest, baddest, greatest wall that's ever been built. You don't start there. You say, I'm going to lay this brick as perfectly as a brick can be laid. Yeah. And you do that every single day, and soon you have a wall.
Welcome to the My Father podcast, where men on the same mission come to grow, have discussions, and educate one another. If you want to become a supporter or join our community, go to www.my-father.com. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the My Father podcast. I'm joined here with my friend Brad Cantrell. God damn it, I messed it up. What is it?
Cantrell.
We talked about this right before, and I messed it up.
Right. I do that all the time. It's all right.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
That's the raw version of it. They got it. So,
yeah.
No, man, you've been listening to the podcast a little bit. You've been kind of a part of the group. What are your thoughts of it? What do you think of it so far?
You know, it's really impressive. It's really cool to listen to other people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, there's a lot of topics on there that make you think a little bit, just about yourself and not just yourself, but even at looking at friends and other people,
Yeah.
So I like it. I like it a lot.
It is, man. I have these guys who, like, a lot of guys reach out to me just like yourself, and they'll just, man, that podcast really reached me, or that made me think about this. It's just really cool to kind of give these guys different perspective and looking at things. So I appreciate you listening, man, and I appreciate you wanting to come on board and share your story. So thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
When we met, you lived in Hillsboro, and you were working at the bow shop, right? That's how I met you, I believe. And have you always lived in Hillsboro, or where did it start?
I actually lived in Clatskanie, which is by Longview. So I would take that drive all the way to Tigard every day.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Holy shit. That's a long ass drive, man.
Yeah, but I come from Eastern Oregon, and everything's over an hour away.
Yeah.
So
it is what it is, huh?
And actually I really enjoyed it because I would take that hour before work, hour after work to unwind. And
yeah, I worked in Tualatin for a while, but man, like, I drove 26 and it was just full of traffic. It sucked. Like, I liked it because I can get some like podcasting or audiobooks in, but the drive just sucked in general.
Yeah.
So where were you born? What area?
Well, so I was born in Longview, Washington.
Okay.
At a real young age, I think I was 4 or 5, my parents got divorced.
Okay.
And my mom is full-blooded Cajun from Southeast Texas, Louisiana.
Yeah.
They speak a whole different language down there, and eat a lot of weird stuff. But so she took us kids back to Texas, and so I spent most of my childhood and younger teenage years in Texas, spending a lot of time between on the summer times going back up here to Oregon.
Yeah.
And then and then when I got a little bit older, Texas don't have elk.
Yeah.
And Texas ain't got salmon.
So when did you start hunting and fishing then? Was that when you come in the summers up here, or was that?
Yeah, my dad is an avid hunter and fisherman, and so being down there, I tried. My mom and my stepdad, they weren't so much. So I'd find myself getting in trouble being gone till dark, fishing on the canals or doing whatever I could. But my heart, as my whole life has been hunting and fishing and have a career in it and everything else. And so I found myself at that young age, I was in a tough spot because, I didn't want to leave my mom, but I knew that my heart was in the Northwest, even at that young of age. And so, I had to leave my sister and everybody behind, and the roles flopped. I went from being here all the time into then going there in the summertime. until I graduated. So
okay, so you were still in high school at this time.
yeah, I was
Okay.
14, I think, when I made the decision.
Yeah, is that a lot of like a tough decision for a kid to make? Like,
Yeah,
you know, I feel like you're abandoning probably that side of the family almost.
yeah. And I felt like there was a lot of resentment even felt with that. Like
Your relationship with them.
Yeah, it was like my mom made me at the time, it was like being, well, you're leaving us behind to go live with your dad. And, and then I have my dad saying, well, you want to come live with me? So it was a tough decision, but,
a lot of pressure, man. That's a lot of pressure. Like,
yeah. And I actually remember the day that I made the decision, it's like I was out, I was away from my parents, and I was fishing on a canal, which down in Texas, there's a lot of canals. And I was sitting there, and one of my friends had passed away, and I was just like, I gotta go, And so I made the decision, and
okay, so right out of so you went to the Pacific Northwest, and this is after high school, right? Or just during high school? You said 14?
14, yep.
Okay.
14.
And then when you graduated high school, what happened from there? How'd that look?
Yeah, so I was working in the woods. I was logging, and all through high school, I was working for my buddy's outfit and my buddy's dad's outfit. And was like, all my friends, we graduated high school, and all my friends started slowly going away. They were going to college or whatever. And, I was kind of sitting there like, I was 19, a punk kid, and thought I knew everything. And then I was just like, what am I going to do? Because it wasn't in the cards for my parents to help me with college.
Yeah, no, so I felt the same way. I'm like, well, that's not an option, so I got to figure something else out. Oh, you froze. Hopefully it kicks back on here soon.
You still there?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, okay. All right. So I went to Longview one day, and I was at a shopping center, and across from the shopping center was the recruiting stations. And I was like, I never thought about that, And so I walked over there, and I walked into, I said, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be a badass, right? I want to be a Marine.
Yeah.
So I walk into the Marines first, and they give me their spiel, and I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do this. I was like, wait a minute. I should probably see what the Army has to say, and I should probably see what the
check
Air Force.
all my options out.
So I went to the Marines, went to the Army, went to the Air Force. The Air Force just didn't interest me at all. the Army, but now looking back, I wish I'd have joined the Air Force. But the Army was pretty cool, but I was still set like, oh man, I'm going to be a Marine. I just want to be a grunt. And so I was like, yep, mindset. And I walked, and I said, wait a minute, I didn't check the Navy out. And so I was like, well, I better go in there. So I went in there, and by the time it was over with, I'd signed papers to leave for the Navy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They got you.
So they got me. But, when I joined the Navy, I was thinking, all right, because my ship date was 2 days before Christmas, which was crazy idea by my part. But excuse me. And then when I got to, once I signed the papers with them and looked into everything, I was like, I looked at the career opportunities and everything else. And at the time, I don't regret my decision to join the Navy, but still part of me looks back and wishes I had joined the Marines. But, so I joined the Navy. Life changed, quite a bit. And pretty much fast forward through that, I was in my 4th year, ready to get out. And I actually came home for leave to go hunting, because I had a bunch of leave saved up. And that leave, I got a phone call, and it was and it was from the base, and it was 9/11 had happened.
Okay.
And so my job in the Navy everybody thinks Navy that you're on a boat, and that's not true. I was an airman, and I was an air crewman on H-46s, which was a search and rescue. So we supplied air support for Marines, because the Marines and the Navy are the same, you know, and so I supplied air support for ground troops, and we'd move everything from mail, to guys in the field or whatever. And so anyway, back to the 9/11, we all got the deal that said get back to base now, report, so I had 24 hours to get back. I get back to base, and the commander, everything's going on, and they're talking to us, and basically like, look, we're deploying, we're going.
And this is at your 4-year mark, right?
This is at my 4-year mark.
Yeah.
And
you're
so
I'm
like, no. And I was set to get out in February. Right. So I was in my last 6 months, which is called your breeze time. It's like you're hanging out, you're getting out, and at that point I was thinking, all right, cool. I've got the GI Bill. Now I can go to school, and I can start look for a career that I want to really enjoy. And so I tell him, I'm like, hey, sir, I'm getting out in February. I just got back from deployment. I'm getting out. And they said, okay, yeah, you are. And I was like, okay. So the day went on, and the commander calls me up to his office, and I walk in there, and they have 2 sets of papers. And he looks at me and he says, here's the deal. I said, I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass. He said, one of these papers is you sign up for the military, because what a lot of people don't know is you sign up for actually 8 years, 4 years active, 4 years inactive.
Yeah.
And so that then they can keep you, And so these papers over here say you are going to you're going to stay, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And he's like, these papers over here are re-enlistment papers with a sign-on bonus, which still says you're staying. So this is what he said. This is what I'm gonna do, Cantrell. I'm gonna walk out there and get a cup of coffee, and I'm gonna come back, and I'm expecting a decision to be made. And so, I obviously went with the bonus and the re-enlistment. Shortly after that, I deployed to Iraq, and then life really changed, and my job, basically I was a glorified door gunner. And my job was to pick up guys that weren't in the best of shape and get them to help. And then after that first tour, I came back, and the same year in 2001, I became a dad too. So I came back, I had to sign custody over to my parents, because when my daughter was born, her mom was stuck around for 5 months, and then 5 months later, I think I've seen her. My daughter's 19 now, and I've seen that woman maybe 3 times since.
So she just bailed, huh?
She just bailed. I became a mom and a dad and a service member all in one stretch.
That is a lot, yeah.
So so then in the military, I deployed. I had deployed to Iraq, then to Afghanistan, because I did another 4 years, and then I did I got that wrong. I did Iraq 2 times in a row, and then Afghanistan for a short period on my last of the 8.
Okay.
And then was a dad in between all that.
Yeah, man, that is crazy. That's a lot to take on at one time, and then just the whole chaos of going to war and just man.
I war and war alone is a lot, go ahead.
Do you think you struggle with the whole war and coming back and kind of having issues with that?
I used to.
Yeah.
And I think that what's been the best therapy is even stuff like this.
Yeah.
I think people ask stories, they want to hear, everybody wants to know. And I would say for anybody that listens out there that has a buddy that's been there or has experienced anything like that, the worst question you can ever be asked is, well, what's the worst thing you ever see?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do
I
you
can
really
imagine.
want to know?
Yeah.
Like, do you really? I mean,
No,
because
like,
you don't, you know.
no, I'm
mean,
sure it's
yeah.
this is shit I'm stuck in my head. Of course I don't want to talk about it, you know, like
Yeah, but as far as like the therapy side of it for me is like when I got out, I you know, the military offers you like these different programs for therapy and stuff.
mhm.
And it's I mean, I hate to say this, but it's garbage.
Yeah.
And so I found my own private therapist, and when I met the guy, I walked in there and like we looked at each other, and by the time I left, I was cussing him out, you know, because I was like, you know, I don't know how many people have experienced therapists or whatever, but I really didn't have anything. I mean, it was like the way he hit me all at once with like these
Yeah.
questions, and it was like it invaded my privacy, and you know, it was like
he was all up in your shit.
yeah, all up in my shit. And I was just like, but he's like, you know, when I left, I said, I ain't never fucking come back here, blah, blah, blah. You know, he's like, well, I'll see you next Wednesday at 3. And I was just like, so I left, and, you know, that following Wednesday, I was there at 3.
Yeah.
And the dude saved my life, really. I mean, and
That's
on top
cool,
of
man.
that, you know, I was able to, I found myself like getting involved with like, hunts in Texas at ranches with people that were struggling,
Mhm.
you know, like a lot of
Yeah.
veterans. I'm still super involved with veterans as much as I can, and telling my story to a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, I've been to several, but I mean, I used to pro staff for primos, and I'd go to seminars, and I'd talk to people and tell them my story, and then people would
Yeah.
for me it's therapeutic. So it used to bother me, you know, there's still little things that bother me, unexpected loud booms, or
Yeah.
you know, like real loud chattery, you know,
Yeah.
like
He was too noisy.
I'll find myself.
I asked my buddy once, and he served, and I was like, what is it like being back? You know, like what is it like? Like what was it like there? What was war like? And he said, to be honest, it was like a video game. Like it wasn't real.
Absolutely.
He's like, the way everything moves is just it's unreal. He said, you come back here and it's boring. It's just slowed down so much. And I'm like, man.
You know, I'll often relate it to when I was a kid, I wanted to be Lane Frost and be a bull rider, you know.
Mhm.
And so I relate it to that. It's like this big adrenaline rush, and you sit on the back of a bull, and you know, you tie into him. When they open that gate, everything goes whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. But in real life, it's only 8 seconds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that adrenaline, I've actually in recent tried to explain this to a certain person. Like it's hard to, unless you've experienced waking up every day thinking, am I going to die today, or is my best buddy sitting next to me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It is like a video game, but here's what a lot of people need to understand is this isn't Contra. We don't get to push up, up, down, down, left, right, A, B, select, start, and get 100 lives. There's only one. And so it's like a video game. But coming back here, I can relate to what he's saying. You know, it's been some time since I've been there, but it's kind of like, well, this is kind of boring.
Yeah, like he's like working a normal job, but it's just so fucking slow paced that I'm losing my mind. Like it's just like I feel like I have no purpose. I'm just fucking sweeping the floor, you know?
Right.
And I tried to understand as good as I could, but I knew I could never relate to what he was saying. I knew I could never really get it, you know?
Yeah. And that's the hardest thing, is trying to get people to understand of like even most veterans' thought process is going to be a lot different. You know, I mean, I go into a restaurant and I got to look at the door.
Yeah.
You know, I got to see the door. Or if like I'll walk through Walmart and like I'm looking at everybody like, all right, which one of these motherfuckers is going to try to kill me today? You know, and that's just stuff you never get.
No, we went shooting once, and a car kind of drove up. We didn't know who it was, and he had grabbed my handgun, loaded it, cocked it, put it by his side, and I think it was just out of a habit he had, you know. And they drove by, and then we went back to talking, and I was like, I didn't even mention it. I just let it be.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. I'm sure that people will always have, probably. You know.
Yeah.
So, thank you for your service, man. I appreciate everything you've done and everything you sacrificed. So thank you.
Yeah.
Let's get back to this. So when did your hunting addiction start?
Oh man.
Like was that your whole life, or it had to hit hard after? Was it after the military?
Yeah. I mean, the military brought me into, my really set in the passion of having a career in the outdoors. I mean, that's what that did. But my whole life, dude, I think, I mean, I was 2-3 years old when my parents were still together, and was like on the shoulders of my dad. When I remember, that's like one of my first memories, is him shooting this buck in Eastern Oregon, and I'm riding up on his shoulders, you know.
That's crazy.
And yeah, I mean, my addiction for hunting has always been there.
Yeah.
Always. And I think probably a lot more than a lot of, I mean, the addiction to it, I mean, it's the thing is with hunting is it's been the best blessing of my life, but it's also been the worst.
Yeah.
You know, it's taken a lot from me. So,
yeah. Since we've been talking, and I'm trying to gather more about you, Brad, and the stuff you tell me, I'm kind of like piecing it together, and I'm curious if my buddy said that it's like a video game, and when he comes back to civilization, it's boring. Do you think you're chasing that thrill when you hunt? That adrenaline, that like excitement?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely ties into it.
I'm sure it has to. Like,
yeah.
You know, like I know guys who've done drugs, and they're like, oh, it's like hunting gives me that same, like, that, you know, that feeling. And so I can see where someone who says, I'm bored in my normal life, and that's the only excitement I have, and it gets my heart pumping again. I can see where someone keeps going back to that because it gives me a fix.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And,
I mean, for me, I mean, it's like, you know, I'm an avid archery hunter. So that feeling of the adrenaline rush of, like, let's just say with elk, you're changing you're convincing that elk that to come to you and to fight or whatever, and then you're getting close. And I think the big difference is, it's like I killed a lot of elk prior to the military as a teenager. And I remember then, right before I'd shoot the bull, whatever, I'd be like,
you start shaking.
I'd be shaking.
Yeah.
Post-military, now I don't shake it. I mean, until
I'm sure after so many hunts, I'm sure you kind of get used to the experience, right? You kind of feel more comfortable with it.
Yeah, like I guess what I'm saying is, prior to the military, I used to, the fix was that adrenaline rush as the elk is coming in. Now the fix is the adrenaline rush after, like, because like I don't feel anything. I'm totally numb. Like, I could be thinking about Superman when an elk comes in to shoot him, and it doesn't get to me. But after I've shot that elk,
then it all comes out.
And it all comes out, you know. And then I have the rush where it used to be a lot different.
Yeah, interesting. And so during this whole time, did you hunt a lot with your dad, or was it more on your own?
Yeah, that's the topic that really, why I reached out to you.
Yeah,
dad,
no, I think that's kind of the My Father group. It's all circled around that, you know.
Yeah. So my dad is an interesting guy. he was raised in South Carolina, raised by his grandparents. He Vietnam veteran. Just to put it all together, my dad is the guy that I could kill the biggest bull. As a matter of fact, one year I drew a Mount Emily tag and I killed a monster, and what would be to most people a monster.
Yeah.
And he couldn't even look at me and tell me, "Hey, good job, man." He could just say, "Oh, well, he's kind of weird looking. Imagine what he'd look like next year."
Yeah.
My whole life,
Yeah.
I've been told, "You're not good enough," or "That's not good enough."
That's gotta be tough, man. That's gotta be tough to
dude.
Chasing that. I didn't have a dad in my life, so to me, I never had someone to prove to. You had someone, and you're trying to chase it. You know, I can see that, man.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I hunted with my dad a lot, and it was like, I hunting was the same way, but it's like, I always wanted to impress my dad.
Yeah.
You know, growing up as a kid, you know, it's like when I grew up, a lot of kids, you know, they had He-Man and Transformers and stuff like that. I grew
Your dad was
up,
a hunter. Your dad was a hunter.
yeah, man. I grew up with like, which was totally awesome. This year I ran into, actually came to our camp, was Larry D. Jones, you know, the old school beginner of elk calling, you know, and like I grew up with like LD Jones mouth reads, and like I'd be practicing all day bugling, and I'd wait for my dad to come home, and I'd be so excited. And I'd go out, "Dad, sit here on the porch," and I'd run down there in the woods and I'd rip a bugle, and it was just like I'd put on this big show and then come up there, "What'd you think, Dad?" And like, "Oh yeah, you need to practice." You know, I never got like, I'm like, at the time as a kid, I felt like, oh man, he's right. I just need to practice more.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until later in life that I realized how damaging that was as a kid.
How old do you think you were when you realized that?
It was when I graduated boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
But for many years, man, like many years, and it hasn't been until, I mean, we'll get to that point, but it hasn't been since just the last 2 years that it's taken me 40 something years to realize, I don't have to do that anymore. You know,
it's tough, man. I can imagine that's super tough.
Yeah.
You know, but that's good for you for identifying that. I think a lot of men don't, and they continue to sit in this cycle of trying to please their dad, you know, and it's just they're just miserable. They're just miserable, man.
It's the most miserable feeling in the world. And like I said, like now, like just in the last, like I said, couple years, whatever, I've put my foot down, not only to him, but to my whole family.
Yeah.
And just like, look, like, I'm not going to impress you anymore. Like, this is who I am. This is what I do. You know, it's like, I think back in the day when, I think the last time I seen you was like in an elk extravaganza or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, you guys were doing the OR or Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon Outdoors. Yeah,
Outdoors, and you know, we're doing heavy hitters, and you know, that was a big project for me and my guys and all of us together. And it was like with my dad, I was like, "Oh, why are you trying to do that bullshit? That, you know, that ain't you ain't gonna be on TV. You're wasting everybody's time. You're
man, that gets at you, man.
Dude. So you know, now to this day, it's like with everybody, it's like I've got this girl telling me like, "Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that," and I'm like, "Go ahead and say that again." Go ahead, because like with my dad, I was like, he did all that, bam, bam, bam. You can't do this, beat me down to where I felt like, dude, I remember being a grown man and like taking a walk and just crying because like, how come they won't believe in me?
Yeah.
And then it's like, I was like, look, here's the deal. I'm going to make this shit happen. And we worked hard and we worked hard and worked hard. And I'll never forget the day that I called my dad thinking, okay, finally, you know, I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing? Turn it on channel, whatever it was."
Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock. Our show airs. Didn't say anything else. He said, all right, let me know if you watch it. Hung up the phone. He didn't, it was over with. And I was like, oh, I'm going to give him a little time, see if he calls me. Didn't call me. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to call him.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what'd you think? Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah.
You know, that's just been
that's been it right there.
My whole life.
Yeah.
My whole life has been that. And it's, you know, and I let trying to please my dad affect friendships.
Yeah.
Affect family, my kids, and everything else. And I'm now at a point in my life, where I can say, you're not going to do that to me anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
I got 2 questions for you, Brad. The first one is, what made that change happen? And then the second one is, do you find yourself following your dad's same footsteps, saying the same things to your kids?
Well, what made it what changed it is in the last 3 years. So my kids' mom and I, because I have my oldest, and then I have 3 kids with my other kids' mom.
Okay.
And we were together 14 years. And during that time of trying to please this hunting addiction, along with my dad, and prove everything, it ultimately cost me my relationship with my kids.
Yeah.
And so what made me change is it's taken 3 years to realize that, like I was saying, I don't have to do this for him anymore, or like I need to start doing things for me.
So was it your divorce that did it? That was your...
Well, we weren't married, but
okay.
But yeah, I mean, you know, for the first year of it, it was like,
I know it's always that. It's always that. I'll figure it out, you know.
I'll figure it out,
yeah.
you know. But it's like my kids like aren't there.
Yeah.
And more or less, like I let this addiction and this this whole weight of my father and everything else cost me the ultimate.
Yeah.
You know, and but yeah, the change has been in the last 2 years. I would say really in the last year or so.
Yeah.
You know, like I've really changed a lot. And, you know, it was to the point where I was making bad decisions and I was losing my friends, and I was just like, man, I need to take some time, and
yeah,
I need to get me right. But
that's exactly it, man. You know, like I
And
went through my divorce like 6 years ago, and that was what like changed me. Was like my like everyone has trauma, and like you know, I was like sexually abused when I was younger, so I have trauma, but that didn't change me. It was my struggle through my divorce. Is like that's when I had to start looking at all my shit and being like, fuck, I need to look into my own self and fix some things about me.
Right.
You know,
right.
and it's curious because people think trauma is what changes you, but it's like a struggle that's worth the change. And it was me, it was my kid, and my kid was no longer in my life. And I realized I am a bad dad. I'm not a good husband. You know, I need to change a lot about me.
That's the head of the nail right there. Yeah. Is for guys to really sit and think, like, I mean, even today, like I'm trying to find myself now is like, instead of like hyping myself up for the good things, I need to look at the bad things as well. And then realizing this, like, you know, I really probably, when she was asking to just go hunting with me, because I should have probably have taken that time. And really, instead of saying, I'll see you in a week, like, what, you know, I probably should have, I mean, those little things, you know, but really addressing yourself and like looking at like, dude, I'm really not being a good father right now.
No, I think if you had identified your struggles with your dad earlier, I think it'd be a lot different.
Oh, for sure.
When you self-reflect and you kind of, I think just being a realist and like, I need some areas like to fix in myself. But a lot of people don't do that. They just live this life of, it's almost like a blur, you know, like you don't really, you're just floating. There's no goal. You're just floating in life.
Absolutely.
And there's nowhere to hit because you're not aiming anywhere.
Yeah. And what was the second question again?
The second question was, did you ever find yourself falling into the same footsteps as your father, saying the same things? Like as much as like my dad was in my life very little, but I found myself saying the same things or doing, and I'm like, God damn it. As far as like, I never wanted to be him. And I find myself doing the same things that he would do.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty interesting how
the
furthest thing I wanted to be was that, you know?
Yeah. And that's part of that last 2-3 years of transition and changing, is not only realizing that, but realizing excuse me,
You good?
how much I was being like my dad that I don't want to be.
Yeah.
And so once I started putting it all together, but yeah, I started seeing myself doing things he's doing, saying the same things, you know. It's just like, even I laughed about it the other day. Me and my buddy Colton, we were outside, and my dad's kind of like a hoarder, you know. It's just like, oh, don't throw that away, I might need that someday, you know. It's like, Dad, you're never going to use this damn thing, you know, like. And so then, like, we were outside, Colton and I were cleaning, and I said, oh, don't throw that away, we might need that. I was like, Jesus. So just like my
there
dad.
it is. There it is.
But yeah.
No, man. So how do you like have any anger towards your father now?
I did.
Yeah.
A lot. And that's just like, that's been part of it, is letting go. And just totally being like, my anger was, the anger that I was feeling was, I was letting him control that feeling of like, I don't know how to put this, but you know, like I was trying to impress him so much that you know, I would act out in anger, you know, and then with that came physical abuse from him, not just verbal and everything else, you know, but there was a lot of physical abuse. And yeah, I mean, now I still struggle. I still struggle with a lot of things. You know, I don't blow up like I used to, but you know, it's just like there comes a point and I get upset, and then I'm like, my mouth starts running, you know. And you know, the worst thing that all guys suffer from, you know, you always say things you don't mean, or you know, stuff like that. But it's definitely getting better.
That's good.
So,
do you want my opinion?
Sure.
I like to try to think about empathy a lot. You know what empathy is? And so they say who we are at 7 years old is who we are as adults. So who Brad was at 7, chasing for his dad's attention, trying to make him love him, that's who you are now, or that's who you were 3 years ago. And so you have to think about, who was my dad at 7? What are the things that were going through his head?
Right.
And so, you know, what I realized with my dad is, I just don't think he knew how to be a man. I don't think he knew how to be a dad. And so my dad did, like, he did some heavy drinking and things like that. And I think he was running from something that maybe he doesn't even know what he's running from.
Right. Yeah, I think, that's a good way of putting it, for sure. Yeah, it's I think with my dad, he'd probably never admit it, but I think with this whole step back from him, and like he doesn't have the control, I think he's kind of, I don't know, I hope that maybe he's starting to realize he can't be like that. I mean, even as an adult, he can't be like that to me anymore. I won't let him, period. It's like, you know, it's like boundaries. I think when you're, you know, do you guys talk about boundaries?
Yep, exactly.
Dude, you got to have boundaries. You have to. And
it goes for everything, for relationships, for work, for friends, anything, you know. And it's, I think when you're so passionate about pleasing your dad or something like that scenario, there's no boundaries, because you want him to accept you, but it's at some point you got to realize there's the line, because I'm my own man now, and I have to manage my household and do this for my family, or else I'm going to end up just like you.
Yeah. But speaking on relationships, I mean, you got to be careful because the whole transition of setting those boundaries as well. You don't want to put them so high that not anybody, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I think they're healthy boundaries. You got to find healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, if we never had no one teach us, like I never had anyone to teach me what a healthy boundary is for a man in a household.
Right.
I had no guidance. So I'm like, oh yeah, no wonder my first marriage ended. Like I didn't know the hell I was doing, And so it's trying to, that's what the group is for, is trying to get guys together and like, okay, like let's pick and pull the little bit we have, because we all grew up with fucked up households,
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's, like trying to explain to somebody that like guys like me and you who have been taught how to be a man, or with these boundaries or anything. It's just like, there's a lot of people that are fortunate out there that have that, but there's a lot of us that don't, and we're damaged, and so it's like trying to explain, I try to talk to somebody now, I'm just like, if this individual person is just like, just nailing me, and I'm like, look, like, I don't understand. I don't know. Like, I'm willingly coming to you saying, like, when you say this and I need to do this and I need to do that, like, listen, like, I don't understand because I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've had that same conversation, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to, and I'm telling you, I'm trying, but I just keep forgetting, or I'm not good at this, or it's just not, it's not in my head to do this,
Yeah. And so I don't know how many, ladies listen to this, or
quite a bit. You'll be surprised.
But but like, it's really important. I mean, I get it. It's not their job to
no, it's not,
be the teacher,
it's not,
but at the same time, like, keep in mind, just like there's a lot of women that are pretty damaged out there, and they have these big walls and boundaries, but dudes ain't no different, man. And so
the difference is that the women, I feel, have more confidence, more self-value, where they say, I'm not dealing with that shit. But I know very few men who will say, I'm not dealing with that no more. The men will usually say, oh, it's fine, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
It'll pass, it'll get better,
Right.
And so that's, to me, I think men almost, you stay single, get your shit together, and then you find yourself a good woman and enjoy your boundaries.
Right.
Because what happens is guys go from girl to girl, and they never really grow. They just on to the next.
Right. But yeah, I mean, like, back to what I was saying is, I think that, if you really care about that person, keep in mind that, like, there's guys that are damaged, and we need, and like, when we say, it takes a lot, that's been the big growth for me too, is like, instead of, from things from my dad of saying, hey, whatever, we'll deal with it later, whatever, like, and literally taking the time to say, excuse me, I don't understand. Like, could you please, because I really don't understand. And
oh, you froze.
Finding still there?
Yeah. The last thing I heard you said, I don't understand.
Yeah, is that I don't understand, and then finding somebody to be able to take the time to say, hey, like, well, what don't you understand? The communication.
So to me, that's just a mature relationship.
Yeah.
Finding a mature relationship, because you can have a relationship, but if it's not mature and you can't talk about things like in an even, in the same place, then it's not going to work.
Yeah, especially, you can't get beat up for it, especially if you don't understand.
Yeah.
You need somebody that's going to listen to you, and, like, even though it may be repetitive, but at the same time, like, you got to realize it's not their job to, to fix you, but if you really want it to work, you got to be able to communicate that way and say.
No, definitely. Me and my friend talk about this quite a bit, and we talked about, like, at least we're trying. Half the guys out there aren't even trying.
Right.
So I'm trying to put in effort, even though I might not be the best. I'm trying.
Right.
And
right.
I know the majority of my friends, people on my friends list don't even try. They're just living through life floating. Like I said, no direction. And so I think finding women who see that and I can identify that and value that, that's important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. What else we gotta talk about? Did you ever have the conversation with your dad on how you feel?
You know, I did in the last year, and it was it was in front of my aunt,
Mm-hmm.
and him and I had gotten into it, and he went to my aunt's house, and part of my dad's big deal is he wants everybody to feel sorry for him. You know, he's I shouldn't sound like he's just this terrible person, but I mean, because he has had good influences, but
No, I'm sure. And this is the thing is, I don't want people to think that we're sitting here bashing our dads. Like, to me, like everyone does the best they can with what they have. Like, they're doing the best they can. So I don't have any hatred towards my dad, and I'm sure you don't either. It's just we're just hurt, and we're trying to talk about this so we can help other people kind of grow. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So he was sitting there, and I like 42 years of everything just came out.
Yeah.
And part of me let him have it, and part of me was like, dude, because like, I mean, I don't cry. Like, I've learned that it's okay to, as a grown man, you know, and I let it all come out. And I didn't want or expect a reaction out of him, but I just I wanted him to hear me.
Yeah.
And it was like, he just sat there and like smirked and kind of even laughed a little bit. And that's where I was like, because I'm living back on the coast now, because I was living in East Oregon. I said, I'm going to leave. I'm done. You know, like I got to break free of this. So I said my piece. I let go. I told him how much he hurted me and how much I just wanted his approval.
Yeah.
And
good for
more
you,
than
man.
More than anything, I just wanted him to be proud of me.
Yeah.
From everything, you know, like my kids, like my dad don't even pay attention to his own grandkids.
Yeah.
And or excuse me, not his grandkids, but his own kids, but he idolizes, and this is nothing against my stepbrother, because my dad had gotten married again, because I love, me and my stepbrother are super tight, but like idolizes them. And it's just like, hey,
you know what's weird is my dad did the same thing. My dad had a relationship with another woman, had a kid, and my dad like took that kid to like track meets and all these things, and my little brother was really hurt by that. I was kind of cold hard at the time. My little brother was hurt by that, and I was like, damn, like I just felt bad.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm sure like the question of why, you know, has to raise somewhere. But that's only for them to answer. Like they I don't know, like I said, everyone does the best they have with like the information they have. So crazy, man. It's crazy. Yeah, man. Is there anything else you want to talk about? You got any questions for me? I've been grilling you.
Yeah. Not really, but you know, I just feel like the message I want to get out there to people is, you know, through what you're doing is like, man, take the time. There's nothing wrong. Like you know, what's funny is I told all my friends about I was going to do this podcast, and everybody was like, you know, you can imagine, they're like, oh, which hunt one is it? You know, like this and that.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just like, and I'd let them kind of just sit there and guess for a little bit. It's like, oh, is it about elk, or is it about your mountain goat hunt, or, you know, what is it about? And I sat there and I was like, you know, actually it's about me.
Yeah.
And people kind of looked at me like, what? Because I said, no, man. I said, I said, Roland's doing this thing. And, you'd be surprised how many people, mutual friends are like, oh, yeah, I seen that, and.
Oh, that's good. That's good that they're seeing it,
Yeah. And I told them, it's about me, and my message to everybody is just like, even as a grown man, it's okay to like stop and think about changes and boundaries.
Yeah.
And talking to people, finding that someone or person that's that will listen to you, and don't when it comes to guys with families, September's a great time of year to be in the woods.
Yeah.
But you ain't got to be in the woods every day.
Yeah.
And all they ask for is a little bit of your time. And so give it to them, because it'll cost you in the end. And it doesn't even have to be hunting. I mean, some guys get all obsessed with golf and everything else,
No, you're right.
But
that's part of the podcast, man, is like, I started this so I can help dads be better dads. Right. I didn't have that. So I want to help other guys have that. Like, I went through divorce. It fucking rocked me. I want to help someone before it's too late. So I appreciate you kind of doing the same thing there and reaching to your audience and telling them like, hey, hunting's good. It's great, but you're going to miss your family when they're fucking gone.
Right. Because, once they're gone, it's like now I'm watching some other guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, in the scheme of things, it was getting, unfortunately, we needed to go our own ways, but there was a lot of things that I look back on now and reflect on, and it's just like, dude, she was giving me the answers to the test.
Throwing it right at me.
And I was just like, no, man, elk are more important, and or deer or whatever.
Yep.
But that, and just you just dude, like find somebody, whether it's even you or me or whoever that can relate or whatever, because there's people out there, and just get out there and talk to people and listen to these podcasts. And I never was into podcasts until the last few years, and then now I find myself listening to them a lot, and especially when I'm by myself.
Yep. So what they say is, you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with. And so when I first started all this, I was growing and the people around me weren't really growing. They were kind of fine where they were. And so it was like a really lonely stage. And so I read a lot of books and I surrounded myself with that. And then after a while, I was like, man, like I need other men around me who are just where I'm at, who are growing. And I couldn't find it. And that's why I created the podcast. I'm like, I'm going to bring them to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to find the ones that want to, and I'm going to bring them close to me. So I'm happy you reached out, man. I'm happy that we connected and
anytime for sure.
Definitely,
man. I've got stories for days, but we only have so much time, but
no, definitely. We'll have to do another one soon. I appreciate you being on the podcast, man. And thank you so much. Yeah, guys, we release podcasts every Tuesday. Keep an eye out for that. Brad, thank you again, man.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we'll see you.
You've been listening to the My Father Podcast. I have a favor to ask of you guys. If you found any value in this, I ask that you please share this with anyone who you think might find some value as well. If you want to find the show notes, become a supporter, or join our community, go to www.my-father.com.